So if you've got one you'd like to submit, the cards are out in the hallway and they will get those questions to us. And then we'll have closing statements for each of you. Every question and introduction and closing statement will be 1 minute. Timekeeper will have a yellow and a red flag. Betsy over here is our timekeeper. Yellow is 30 seconds. Red flag is a minute. Because there are so many of you, we are going to be pretty aggressive about cutting you off, sorry, at the time frame. So if you'll watch for her, that would be great. Question rotation, we're going to start down here at the end with Mr. Phillips, and then we will rotate down through questions. The next question, then we'll start with Ms. Bloom, and then so it will follow every time. So each one of you is going to get the the pleasure of being the first out on the question, and then you'll all, of course, get the end of the question too. So we try to make that fair, but it will rotate the same every time. Let's see. And then as a reminder, we are taking questions. Yep. We do have nine candidates. Bruce Nell sends his regrets. He's away on business and cannot attend. As a reminder to everyone, City Council has 9 members. It's comprised of City Council members from each of the 3 wards. Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3. This year, there are 2 positions open in Ward 1. There are 2 positions open in Ward 2, and there is 1 position open in Ward 3. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And one more announcement.
So I forgot to mention, you'll notice that the candidates, they are free to either wear their masks or not wear their masks, and we have them spaced out. But I appreciate all the audience who is respecting that. As a library program, we're asking that everybody wear their mask to cover both their nose and their mouth. And thank you for sanitizing as you entered. So there you go.
Wonderful. So just a reminder, I'm Kylie McCormick, and I have our first question to Mr. Phillips, our candidate self-intro for 1 minute reminder. What motivates you to want to become a Casper City Council member?
1 minute. Okay. My name is Gabriel Phillips. I was born and raised in Casper. Spent most of my life here. I did get out for about 4 or 5 years. Lived on the East Coast for a little while in New York City, and on the West Coast for a little while in California. Really have grown to appreciate Wyoming for more than what I saw it was when I was younger. I have very conservative values, and I am running specifically to protect the civil rights, the civil liberties of our community.
My name is Margaret Bloom. I moved to Casper when I was 6 with my single mom, and strict budgeting has always been part of my life. I think that there are some budgeting things that I am interested in as far as the city goes. I would call myself a fiscal conservative, and that's a little bit of my focus. I also feel that perhaps the city does not need to be, or government in general does not need to be involved in private matters as much as we're seeing our entire country kind of move. So that also is a motivator for me.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, first of all, for being here tonight. My name is Amber Pollock. I am born and raised in Casper as well. My family owns and operates a small business here in town, and we've just celebrated, or getting ready to celebrate, our 6th anniversary in business. I've been here for most of my life, and I am passionate about Casper. I run a business here, so obviously it's in my interest to make Casper a successful community. But also I live here, and I have lived here, and I want to continue to live here. And so for me, I bring a vision of Casper's future to the table. And I'm passionate about Casper's next generations, and I want to make sure that perspective is represented at all levels of government, but I've chosen specifically City Council to try to bring that perspective to the table.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Edith Sallin. I've lived in Casper for 13 years. Earlier in life, I was in the United States Marine Corps, but for the last 13 years, I've operated Martinizing Dry Cleaning. I see very few faces in here that don't use us there, and we appreciate that. I was running for city council because I think we should have a more entrepreneurial spirit, or at least voice on that council. I've seen the council make decisions that affect businesses, and I think that someone with a more business empathy should be on the council as that's being done. Certainly I was encouraged by my neighbor Helen Wolf. I want to embarrass her, and Brian Shane, who encouraged me sternly to make this step. So thank you to everyone.
My name is Ken Bates. I'm passionate about Casper and running again for this same reasons I ran the first time. I heard enough people that say that they want somebody that will take action, that will respond to them, that will listen to them, take their questions to council, bring it up, and I want to believe that's something that I've been doing and I'm passionate about, and representing not just Ward 2, but serving all of Casper, and that is my heart and soul, and I've really put a lot of time and effort into doing that. If any of you have emailed me, I'm pretty sure you probably got an email back or a phone call, and again, that's what was being asked, and that's what I've tried to do, so that's why I want to continue running.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ingebretson. I'm a Casper native and an owner of a small business, a real estate business. Having a business has allowed me to have some opportunity to kind of think outside the box to bring to the city council. With Edith, I kind of feel like the one thing that's lacking is a little bit of ownership from the businesses and our citizens. I have a background in oil field and the trucking industry, so that kind of gives me an idea of how to bring different ideas to the board. I wrote grants and and have served on multiple different boards. So budgeting is kind of my forte, and so I look forward to being on the city council.
Thanks. Y'all hear me all right? Kyle Gamroth, born and raised in Casper. I'm 32 years old. Just had my birthday last week, so it was nice. I'm a very community-focused person, always looking for ways to serve my community. My background is in mental health, and when I was working in that field, I served on the Natrona County Suicide Prevention Coalition, the Natrona County Suicide Task Force, the Meth and Substance Abuse Committee, the Governor's Behavioral Health Advisory Council. So I always try finding ways to go above and beyond and use my education and experience to help in that realm. I'm doing a different line of work now, but I still try to find ways to serve and be a better ambassador for my community. I've gone through the Visit Casper Tourism Ambassador Program. I've gone through the Chamber of Commerce Leadership Casper Program. This is all on my free will, reaching out to these agencies and wanting to do that. Nothing my employer told me to do or anything like that. So I want to serve on city council because we're going through some very difficult times, and I'd like to use what I think my strengths are to help get us through those. Thank you very much.
Is this on? Okay. I'm Steve Cathy. I am not a Casper native. I was born and raised in Kansas City, spent time in the military, graduated from the University of Kansas, went to work for Conoco, lived in Lake Charles, Corpus Christi, Hobbs, Farmington, Pampa, and then here in 17 years. So we moved quite a bit. We got here in 91. Conoco closed the office in 94, and I started my own consulting business. And have been successful at that. Took a partner in 05 and merged with Goolsby Finley and Associates May 1. I believed in small business. That was why I ran for council the first time. Currently, I am working with the massage therapists in writing the ordinance that they would like, not one that council is trying to cram down their throat. So that is one of my things as well, is that private business, small business are very important to this community. That's what runs this community. And so that's why I continue to be and want to be on council. Thank you.
I'm Mcdusk, running for Ward 3. I was born and raised here in Casper. I started my first business here in Casper at the age of 14. I currently run a small business consulting firm. I work with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, so I'm so excited to see so many fantastic candidates that are local business people. I agree with Steve. The small business is what runs the city, and we need to make sure that we take care of them. My parents always instilled in all 12 of their children that we should be serving others. We're here on the earth to serve other people, so I always wanted to serve other people. I'm currently a member of Casper Rotary Club, have been since 2008. I've had the privilege of being Santa Claus for the Rotary every year, and I really enjoy that. Last 2 years I've been Santa Claus up at the event center, so I love serving the community, and I especially like seeing the smile on our kids' faces.
Thank you. Next round of questions. Lisa's got some hand wipes, and then we'll put one down on the other end in case anyone would like those in between. The next one, it will be for Ms. Bloom. This is an audience submitted question. How much time do you feel this position requires? How many council meetings have you attended in council meeting chambers? And I'd just like to remind everyone, if you need the question repeated, you can ask to do so, and your time will start after I repeat, or Kylie repeats the question. So, thank you.
Thank you. I have attended a handful of meetings. I've also watched online when they were closed. I heard on the radio a gentleman say that, I think it was Glenn Woods, that the best communities are the ones whose city councils don't meet very often. I think there's some validity in that. I'm willing to show up on a daily basis. However, I don't believe that the city council needs to be constantly meeting to establish more rules and regulations and ordinances and fees and fines and so.
I have also attended a handful of city council meetings. I don't go all the time every Tuesday night, but I have participated in the process multiple times on specific issues that are important to me, where I have either brought something to the attention of council or participated by giving testimony in front of council. So I've participated in the process quite a bit. Also in advisory capacities, advisory committees, that sort of thing. So I'm well accustomed to attending lots and lots and lots of meetings. I do like aspects of that because I enjoy the collaboration and the discussion that happens, but I also agree with Margaret a little bit that I think we do need to be cognizant of what we're asking of our city council members in terms of time, and making sure that we're asking them to attend meetings that really are important, that they really do need to be there for, because ultimately this should be a job that a regular person with a job outside of it can do and do both successfully.
I've been to every city council meeting since the primaries except for one or two, and with that I've gained respect that probably is a 40-hour-a-week thing, that those guys are doing things that are going on not during those meetings as well, and I'm fully ready to commit that level of time and work to the process.
I have not missed a single council meeting, work session, executive session since I started. I've been at every single one of them because that's how dedicated I have been and what I am for the city of Casper. Prior to that, when I decided to run, I decided to attend every council meeting. When I got permission to attend the work session, I sat right behind Dallas Laird, who I was taking his position or hoping to, and I didn't miss a single one until until I took my seat. So I have been absolutely dedicated to this 100%.
I have attended multiple meetings over the last several years, and as well as watching them online. I've testified in front of the council on certain issues, especially during property rights and things of that nature. So things that's just a little bit more near and dear to my heart. As for the city council and the time, I believe that some work sessions and things are probably going to last a little bit longer than others, and so whatever it takes, I'm there and I'm fully committed to the job.
Yeah, I won't spend a ton of my time repeating what Margaret, Amber, some of the other folks have said. I do think it's important that this job is something that people can do while holding other full-time employment. That being said, I am totally prepared to take on what I believe the responsibilities are. I've asked several different council members on several different occasions when I've met with them. They've all said it's about a 40-hour week gig, so I'm totally prepared to handle that. I'll probably have to pull back in some of the other areas. Like I said, I serve on a local children's museum. I'm a member of Rotary Club, and I help with some of the stuff they're doing, and so I'll probably have to pull back to maintain a healthy work-life balance. But I've already met with the Interact Club, the group of young folks that petitioned the City Council to start the Casper Youth Council. I've met with them since that meeting and told them anything I can do to support them, I'm more than willing to do it. I've held several coffee with a candidate events at Scarlo's Gallery and at Bourgeois Pig, encouraging members of the public to come ask me questions about City Council, and in exchange I'll offer to buy them their drink. I went to the Visit Casper breakfast last week that they invited us all to, and so yeah, I mean, more than happy to serve that. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
The other people here are speculating on time commitment. Basically, there's a work session, there's a regular council meeting the first and third Tuesdays of each month. Pre-meeting starts at 5:30, meeting starts at 6 o'clock. Those meetings are normally not over before 7, and they have run till 11. The second and the fourth, the work sessions start at 4:30, and they normally last till about 8 o'clock. Along with that, you are assigned committee assignments. I am on the Joint Powers Water Board that controls the water plant. I am on the CNFR committee, which meets monthly. I am on the Hall of Justice Joint Powers Board that meets quarterly. Anyhow, you see where it's going. Right now, I am working with the massage therapist about an hour and a half to 2 hours weekly with that meeting, plus then dealing with the city attorney and his staff and writing the ordinance. It becomes 20 plus for a regular council member and close to 40 for a mayor, probably.
Yeah, what they all said. It involves a lot of time, and that's one of the reasons that I am running now, is because I have more time than I have in the past, and an opportunity to serve, and I want to be there to serve. So.
Can I get part of his minute and a half? I was going to tell him how many pages of paperwork we get.
I've been to probably a dozen city council meetings over the years. Generally, the hot topic issues tend to gather me down there at times. I just want to get down and get on the mic and put in my two cents about things. As far as the hourly commitment goes, seems about right. Seems par for the course. I agree with what Margaret was saying earlier in that you have a lot of complaints about politicians is that they rarely ever meet and they rarely ever do any work, but I think that's probably a good thing, because the more they legislate, the more rules and regulations get implemented. So I'm all right with the workload. Seems like in order to be really good at this, though, you have to throw in a lot of extra hours. So got to squeeze them in. But like everybody else has pretty much said, in order for this to be a position of representation, it has to be set up so that a working man can do the job of council. Or woman.
All right, Ms. Pollock, yes. Next question. Rather than a broad generalization, what is one specific policy or program you would like to see happen?
Specific, I think I'd call it a program that I'd like to see happen is sort of a digital presence maintenance program for the city of Casper. I think that really everything that council does and says becomes part of our digital presence. So when people are Googling us to say, should we visit? Should I move my business there? Should I move my family there? All that becomes part of our landscape. And I think we should put a strategy behind it. I think we should be cognizant of that. I think that we should have some expectations of council folks that maybe they're writing blogs or developing content for the city that can go out and put a positive image for our city into the world. Maybe we work with other organizations that are doing that same thing. So to me, that's that's something that really wouldn't cost any money, but could do a lot of good for our city to make sure that we're projecting a positive image of ourselves to the rest of anybody who might be looking at us.
What I would like to see is already going on, but I'd like to see brought to the forefront a little more. Advanced Casper is trying to diversify Casper's economy. It seems like it's difficult for them to get their message out. I would like to see the city council and the city as a whole embrace them more and showcase some of the fine ideas that they are bringing about.
I'm gonna echo with what he said about Advanced Casper and working with them, of ideas that they have. I'd also, can you repeat that question again?
Certainly. Rather than a broad generalization, what is one specific policy or program you would like to see happen?
What I'd like to see is more focus on our parks and recreation, as well. Advancing that for people don't come here, for our fire department or police department, and for that, when people come here, they want something to do, they want something. I'd like to focus more on what we can do in our parks to draw people, and also for our families. Families like going to parks and having things to do for their kids, teens, and the more we can put in, I think the better our economy would be as well.
I have a couple. So one of the things I would like to see is enhancing the community gardens, and perhaps there is one currently being done over there on the east side across the street from Menards, and then I'd like to see another one on the west side, something that the community could get together and then have sustainable, teach the youth about gardening and its sustainable growth. And then the second thing is to enhance the Nextdoor app, and then perhaps enhance that in a way to where it could lessen the duties for code enforcement, so that if you have an elderly late neighbor that maybe can't mow their lawn or something, somebody could put that on the app and then call the neighbors in and bring the community together instead of us just being divided.
Thanks. I would echo some of the things already stated. The Advanced Casper, Justin Farley and his team over there is doing a good job. I love the Wyoming Tech Business Center that's under Eric Schlitt now. They do the Casper Startup Challenge, and Amber actually and her family piggyback cocktails last year. The guy, the one that does these outlanding trailers and stuff. So really cool, creative products that come out of that. As far as programs typically cost revenue, and I haven't stated it here tonight, but it is very important for me to be fiscally conservative in these times. There's been some recent decisions made on council that I don't feel are as financially fiscally conservative as we should be at these times, because really we don't know what's going to happen these next 6 to 12 months, so we should be very conservative as far as that goes. Policy-wise, I like Casper Youth Council. Like I said, I've already reached out to them. When I was working in mental health, there was a program called an ANGEL program, which people that are actively misusing drugs can turn in illicit drugs and paraphernalia to the police department and be immediately referred to treatment without getting charges. I don't know whatever happened to that. I haven't seen anything about it in the past couple of years, but mental health, treating substance abuse as a public health issue, that's important to me, so thanks. I like it.
You're better than the ones on TV.
So are you.
My one concern is there is a lot of talk along the table here about expanding programs. And I am in favor of amenities, but we shouldn't continue to expand amenities and expand programs when we are having to lay off, furlough, and freeze wages of city employees. City employees are our most valuable asset, and we have devoted over $1.5 million to expanding the trail system. I have nothing against the trails, but when we are cutting $2.3 million from street maintenance, which is about half of what we should be spending, I think that's the wrong place to be spending money. And so that's why you have noticed 8-1 votes, 8-2 votes on some of these amenity votes that I have not been in favor of spending our money that way. So to go along with what Mr. Gamroth mentioned is, yes, I am a physical conservative. Fiscal, not physical, fiscal. I'm physically conservative.
There's some great ideas down the table. I think we're gonna have a fantastic city council this coming year. One of the things that I want to see is the youth in our communities get more involved in government. With the Casper Youth Council that Kyle's talking about, we really need to get our youth more involved in the government. I know I was like most youth in Casper. I grew up here and I left for 10 years job hunting, and I was tired of the oil field. You can only do the oil field for so long before it wears you out. So I would like to see the youth stay in Casper, get some more diverse economics in here to where we can keep our youth in Casper longer and be able to get them more involved in the city council and governing their city and town.
Okay, all right. So looking at the foreseeable future on council, we keep making these allusions that we have hard times coming up, but nobody's really belting up and saying what those hard times are going to be. Well, obviously we have big, hard financial deficits that are coming our way, and that goes beyond our city and our state. It goes to our federal government. So when they expand the money supply and we start to see things like inflation and bread goes up to $20 or $30 a loaf, then the dollars that you have in savings are not going to be saving you. So in addition to looking at wise business policy, because Casper is a business, it's also important that we look at wise monetary policy. If you look at the value of silver and gold over the past 100 years, it should be not so much a perception that gold and silver are rising, but it's the value of the dollar that is constantly going down. So, is that my deadline, or do I have a minute left?
I'm going to piggyback on the budget thing also. We have some really great programs already in place that do not necessarily cost money. We've got Friends of the Bridle Trail that take care of the bridle trail. We love it. We take care of it. There are people that clean up the river every year because they love it, so they take care of it. So I would think that a program that I would like to maybe support that doesn't necessarily have to be, necessarily a program would be volunteerism, encouraging volunteerism. We could utilize that for community service opportunities. We can use it to develop youth opportunities, get youth involved in. There are all kinds of advantages to volunteerism, and so if we were to promote one thing, that's the direction I would go, because it would move away from spending money, but it would also move toward maybe saving, taking care of the trails that we love and all the wonderful things about Casper that we have.
Okay, next question is for Mr. Allen, and this is going to be a bit of a convoluted question. There's actually two in here. It's a compilation of a submitted and a question that was pre-submitted. So if you need it repeated, please feel free to ask me. The municipalities and a county can jointly ask the voters to pass up to 2% more of a local sales tax over and above the state rate of 4%. The Wyoming legislature has been asked to allow any city to pass a local option sales tax just for the city without the county or other cities voting on it. Would you support such an idea? Do you think the average citizen knows how the funding model works and knows what the dire situation is likely going to be with the financial situation?
Without knowing all the particulars, I'm going to not guarantee that I would vote no, but I'm going to say no, that we're often taxed and always taxed. There's never talk about rolling back a tax, and always government wants to raise tax when we have the least amount of money or are facing hardship. I would look for other ways to fill those funding gaps rather than throw all of that responsibility on the people to figure out where that money is going to come from.
That's a good question. To run a city, you have to have taxes. That's how it's ran. Do I support higher taxes? Not until wages come up for the general people. You raise everything keeps getting raised except for the wages of the common person. And until we can do that, I would not support a higher tax at all. What was the second part of that question?
The second part of the question is, do you think the average citizen knows how the funding model work and how dire the likely financial situation will be?
The average person, I do not believe does. Heck, I'm on council, and some of it I don't even understand, but I'm not the smartest guy there for sure. So I think it could be brought and explained better. I'm not the person to do it, and that's kind of the best answer I have for that second one.
I am not for raising taxes. I do know that the state is looking at raising multiple taxes next year, and then the assessor has raised our taxes. And so with all these taxes coming up that are going to be raised, meanwhile, our citizens are still suffering from lack of jobs and still not gainfully employed. So instead of taxing our citizens, I think it's more responsible for the council to try to run within their budget and try to look at where we can cut costs and push some of those costs into some other areas versus just taxing the citizens.
Well, to answer the second part first, no, I absolutely don't think the majority of people understand how dire the financial situation is, and you can find the evidence by just grabbing the arm of a random passerby and asking them about it. It's a $30 million projected decrease in sales tax revenue for the city of Casper. I think the state of Wyoming over the biennium is looking at over $1 billion cutting their revenues. We've been very fortunate in Wyoming to be living a high quality life on the backs of mineral tax revenues, and those have disappeared over the past few years. So, tax analyses have determined that Wyoming citizens get $3,000 or $30,000 in services for the $3,000 in taxes that they commit. So, we as a people need to do some reflection and consider the fact that if we are choosing, I'm against taxes in general, but I'm always for putting it on the ballot and letting people vote for it. So absolutely, I would support having it on the ballot, grassroots level. You go one way or another on it, but it's a bad situation we're in, and people need to catch up. It's going to get worse. So.
I would have to agree with the second part that the average citizen doesn't understand the taxing situation. Of the 4% they pay right now, less than 2% of that comes to the city. So that's where we are from that standpoint. The other part that they're concerned about is, first of all, the legislature has already passed the bill that Ms. True was talking about. So that is a law now. But it does come down to the citizens having to vote on that. We cannot, as a council, pass that to raise taxes. The other part of it is, back when they took the tax off of food, the state legislature said they would make that up for the cities and towns. And there's been a direct distribution of about $105 million every year from that to the cities and towns, not just to Casper, but to the cities and towns across the state. With the straits that the state is in, there is considerable concern that that $105 million is going to go away. If that goes away, this city and every city in this state is going to be in severe financial straits.
I agree with the second part as well. I've had many conversations with a lot of people about taxes and where the taxes go and how we pay for things, and the average citizen that I've talked to has no idea how dire the situation is or where this money is going to come from. I think that as a state, we have failed in not diversifying our economy better over the years. It seems every time we start to diversify the economy, we have another oil boom, energy boom, and so it gets put on the back burner. We're coming to the point where we have to do something in order to raise taxes. I don't like taxes. However, I do understand that money has to come from somewhere. So we have to be fiscally conservative, yet we also have to be able to pay for things that our citizens will need.
I don't understand government, let alone economics. I agree with just about everything everybody on this panel has said so far, in that none of us want to raise taxes, but when you start looking at the bare bones of what's going on and dissecting all of the answers to the problems, is it an inevitable probability that we have to raise taxes? I would like to just say no, I would vote no on taxes, but when you look at the black and white, what's really going on there, I think that we can get creative with bad situations and turn them into good situations, like, for example, taking parks and growing food in them and turning a profit on these parks instead of trying to scratch our heads trying to figure out how we're going to pay for watering them and mowing them and doing that kind of maintenance. So I think there are creative solutions that can be found to these problems, but taxation might be inevitable.
I think it's very easy to go straight to the only place to get money is from taxes. I'm not entirely sure how we got to that. Ennis is right that you raise taxes, but you never lower them. Once the tax goes up, the 5% sales tax, I don't have a problem with that. I always vote for it. However, it's never going to go away. We have it now. Even with us having the ability to vote for it, it's there. I wonder if there's a possibility of stepping outside of the mindset of the only way to get revenue is taxes. What if we encouraged more small business? What if we encouraged people to make money in the community that would then be distributed in the community that would come back? I run a garbage company. We haven't raised our rates in, I don't know, 3-4 years. When I need more revenue, I work harder. I expand my services. I don't raise my prices.
I do not think that the average citizen has a concept of how dire the situation in Wyoming is and is going to become. We're talking about this like it's a gap in revenue, or if it's like, we could trim the fat. It's not a trim the fat situation. We're in a lop off some limbs type of situation. It is the direct result of massive structural imbalance in the way the state makes money and is able to distribute it to communities. So because the legislature has failed to correct that structural imbalance, I think it's incumbent upon them to provide local options. So allowing for ballot initiatives to come to the communities so that we can say, you know what, we don't want to see a cut in our services. We're going to vote as a community to support it through an additional sales tax or something like that. To me, community options are critical, and this is a discussion that is going to become really familiar to everybody in this room because it's going to start to affect every person. It's not going to be like those people got cut over there. It's going to be we all did.
Thank you. Speaking about cuts, Mr. Bates, this is for you. In 2017, the council started taking steps such as bringing an outside firm to review the police department. And last year, the council approved the purchase of new forensic equipment. Should the city invest more in social services for victims of violent crimes?
Most people would say because of our economy, maybe not, that's not a good idea, but we're not going to stay, and I've heard that through a lot of the comments, we're not going to stay where we're at forever. We're going to rise above this, money's going to come in. So to invest in something like that, I would be for. I believe in supporting that. Whether we're hurting or not, the victims, we need to look at them and do what we can to protect anybody. And so I would support it now. I would support it 2-4 years down the road. So
I would support for the victims of the violent crimes, and then I also encourage for the forensics. I've had a unique position to kind of see how COVID has affected people staying in homes, and the crimes have gone up, and, you know, the family violence and things, and so I really believe that we need more personnel on the ground. We need to be able to process these cases faster, and we need to be able to get these things through the court system a lot quicker. And right now, we do not have what it takes to get this done in a timely manner.
I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of the particulars about, you know, what the police department currently does to support victims of violent crime, what else they could be doing, how much money we're spending currently, or how much would be available to expand those services. So, you know, that's something I would definitely like to learn more about. I would certainly reach out to CAP, Child Advocacy Project. They work with children in the community and act as a liaison between the Casper Police Department and child victims, and so I reach out to them, get their input, obviously, the police department, Chief McFeeders, but yeah, I'll admit I don't know exactly what we're doing in that sense, but with police reform being a hot topic nationally, you know, I think there's definitely opportunities for us to be changing the way that we're policing in our communities and supporting victims. They probably haven't historically always felt supported. You know, there's a pandemic across the country of rape kits that, you know, there's never any resolution. These women go into these vulnerable situations, go to the hospital, and, you know, go through this, I imagine, traumatic process to get this kit to move forward with prosecuting people, and there's, you know, never any resolution, nothing's done with those kids. So obviously I think there's some things we'd love to do. I'd be interested to learn more.
The police department, after, about 4 years ago, has started more aggressively working towards the family violence, that type of crime, sexual assault. They have references that they send people to as far as counseling centers. The one thing that I would recommend, which was brought up by one of the people down there, is volunteerism. The fire department actually has a fire victims fund that is funded by private donations. So I think that would potentially be a very good way of getting community involvement as well. And so, yes, victims do need help, and they do need counseling, and they need to get on with their lives. And that is a big part of what needs to be done.
I agree with Steve. We're Wyoming. We take care of our own, and I think one of the ways that this community is fantastic at taking care of our own is through nonprofit organizations. We've got a lot of fantastic nonprofit organizations in the state of Wyoming and the city of Casper who can help in this area. Victims absolutely need as much support as we can give them, and I think that the best way to do that is through nonprofit organizations, and donating our time, our energy, and our money to those organizations to help get that taken care of. And our police department also needs as much support as we can give them. My wife's father was a chief of police down in Brazil. I've got a lot of family members who are police officers and a lot of friends who are police officers, so I believe we need to support them. They have a pretty tough job to do.
Violent crime is a fairly vague description there. So I would be in support of this for things like sexual assault and women getting raped, domestic violence, things like that. But I think that as a reoccurring model, one way that you bankrupt government is through failed social programs. And if we're already facing big deficit budgets, I don't want to be spending the city's money trying to counsel some guy that you know, got robbed in a mini mart or something like that. So I think that your question needs to be a little bit more specific in that regard.
We do currently have a volunteer program for crime victim advocates. My mom is a crime victim advocate. She goes to the hospital and she counsels people that have been raped or beat up. It's a wonderful program. She volunteers her time. It gives her something to do in her retirement years, and she feels like she's contributing back. I think that we have a community full of people that want to give their time, that want to contribute to their community, and volunteer programs such as what we currently have in place are brilliant.
I would echo what a few people have already said. I think this may be a place where we really need to lean on our nonprofit sector, make sure they're that we're working in cahoots with them, because when it comes down to it, you know, we're all talking up here about revenue shortfall, and we're talking about budget difficulties, and obviously I want to say, like, yes, these are all the things we want in our community. We want victims to be supported. No one would say that they didn't, but this is an example of how painful some of these revenue situations are going to become, where we are not able to provide the services that we know our citizens deserve and that they need. And so it provides us an opportunity, as Gabriel said, to get a little bit creative, you know, maybe leveraging some other services in our community, but it also highlights the need to address our revenue problem, because we can't let things like this go, you know, without support when we know that our community is in dire need of that support.
I too would echo what everyone has said, that volunteerism and nonprofits would be the way to handle this. My own company, Martinizing Dry Cleaning, we support an organization called Mimi's House, and be it homeless teens or dogs or whatever, if you tell the people of Casper where there's a problem, you know, in the case of homeless dogs, there are people bringing bleach and dog food in droves to the need of those dogs, and just tell everyone where the need is, and I think we as a community often rise up.
Thank you. All right, the next question is from Ms. Ingebretson. It's also a two-parter. Are there positions or services within city government that you would see as unnecessary or perhaps be better handled by the private sector? What services would you be willing to reduce or cut?
I do think that there are positions that could probably look at being cut. One of the positions that I have looked at and kind of wondered, just because I do have property management and I manage over 300 properties. And so part of the property management side of it is always just getting vendors and getting bids on doing the jobs. So I believe part of that with the city is the parks and lawn mowing and tending to the gardens. We have tons of landscaping companies and vendors. I'm not sure why we couldn't just put an RFP out and let this happen to a private sector, and then you're not paying for city wages and employment, and I think that that would be a huge benefit back to the city without having to pay for just lawn mowing and gardening.
Yeah, I would echo what Lisa said. Potentially landscaping is one of those areas where private contractors could do it more efficiently and cheaper. I know City Council has been recently discussing snow plowing. It's super expensive. The shifts those guys work ends up, you know, resulting in a lot of overtime and stuff like that. And so that's very expensive for us. And so if there's a way to contract that out privately, I would love to explore that. Potentially they already are or have. But we'd certainly like to explore that. The management of the event center, I think, is another good example of contracting out to a private entity to run the events up there. You might have caught that they were considering selling the naming rights. You need to tell them to come up with something better than Ford Wyoming Center. That's awful. That's the worst thing I've ever heard of. But we'd totally be open to, you know, somebody taking it for $500,000 a year when we're $30 million short. Hey man, I'll suffer the Ford Wyoming Center, but you know, just because we're in bad straits. But yeah, so I think there's lots of opportunities to explore, you know, some of these services being contracted out. Definitely.
As far as the Fort Wyoming Center is concerned, we have tried for several years to get naming rights. And I think back when we initially signed the contract with Spectra, that we thought it would be in the several $100,000. But I think at this time, we'll take the 75 and go on. So beggars can't be choosers. By the same token, yeah, we have already cut some of the overtime. The city will only be plowing from 4 a.m. to midnight, so there'll be 2 10-hour shifts. As far as outsourcing the landscaping, we have contracts with 4 or 5 landscaping companies here in the city already. However, we do use summer help, which are college students, things like that, for most of the summer mowing, which gives a summer college student a part-time job and really has no benefits attached to it. So those aren't full-time employees, they're just being paid a wage. So we are being frugal with that kind of money as well. So I think that's something that we need to consider too, is our youth have jobs.
I'm sure there probably are areas that we could look at cutting back. I'm not as familiar with the intricacies of all of the different things, but some of the ideas that they have come up with, I definitely agree that there's bound to be areas where we can contract them out or, do a better job of. There's always room for improvement.
Everybody already stole my answers. Being at the end of this one, but again, in the last forum that we had in Washington Park, I kept beating a dead horse, and that was we need to start growing food. We need to start growing food. Okay? And who had the great idea of outsource? Lisa, great idea. But if we could get a little bit more creative on that, instead of subcontracting it out to a landscaping company, why don't we put it in the hands of Food for Thought or somebody that's going to do something good with it? And again, how do we take these liabilities that we're facing and turn them into profits?
I've always thought it's kind of strange that the city's in the entertainment business, as far as Hogannon, the event center, golf courses. I'm not sure that that's the best use of our money. We could maybe lease those different things out and maybe not be in the business of being in business.
So for me, I think that the first place to look, and I'm sure a lot of looking has already been done here, are in city services that require a lot of equipment. For us to have the equipment on hand, it depreciates, you've got maintenance, there are a lot of costs beyond just the cost of the employees to run them, and so people have mentioned landscaping, maintenance. To me, those things where we gotta keep a lot of equipment on hand would be the first place to look. I think if we are gonna run facilities, which I fully support, Hogannon, events and that sort of thing, we do need to make sure we're running them like a business. And so I've talked to Ken Bates about, Hogannon running year round for mountain bikers and things like that. I think that there are a lot of opportunities where we can, if it were an independent business, we would run it differently, potentially, than it's being run now. And we would look for ways to make money at every turn, ways to monetize all the things that we're doing. And so I think, that's something that we should be considering with those facilities.
I agree with a lot that Amber said, and to broaden on that, there's a thing called business momentum where you always do things a certain way and then something new comes and the business momentum needs to be changed. And what that is that we've always done it this way. You've got to get your people thinking in a different way. And so back to what Amber was saying, I would apply that to the golf course. If you look into markets like Arizona, they have their golf courses zero-scaped to the natural terrain, because pumping water into a golf course in Arizona would be bankrupting of its own. Perhaps we could do that with our own golf courses, where we have a natural Wyoming landscape which doesn't require so much energy and overhead to maintain, and then market that come Golf Wyoming. That, it's not Scotland, it's not Arizona, it's Wyoming, and business people think like that at every turn. How am I going to make more money? And I think that privatizing these entities would bring that type of creativity to them.
So I'd like everybody to take a step back. And if anybody looks at the Casper Event Center and what they had set for this summer would have been phenomenal, and the revenue would have been amazing. You look at, take a step back to look at the golf course. The golf course has been in black for a super long time. They are doing really well. They bring in a profit. They don't lose a profit. Hogannon, I think we need to look at visionary. And a lot of these, I don't think we need to privatize. We need to look at those who are running it, and are they visionaries? And the more people that are visionaries of what each aspect of the city could be, as in some of our parks have a garden, that's a vision. I think we need to look at more of the people that are running it and being visionaries than I think privatizing everything to save money.
Thank you. Mr. Gamra? This past summer, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference worked with the Casper Police Department to hold a prayer vigil after the murder of George Floyd, during which a plan of action was put forward, which included the creation of a citizen and first responders collaboration board and increased public awareness of officer experiences and more community outreach. Also, the Sundance City Council just voted to defund their police department based on a budgetary issue. Would you consider implementing any of these proposals, including the one from Sundance? If so, which ones and how? And if not, if you reject all of the proposals, is there a specific reform to the police that you would suggest?
60 seconds, right? Yeah, I need at least 90. Yeah, you know, I've been following city councilman talking about this. Aaliyah, is that what it's called? The chief of theaters wants to get the police department credential. You know, I forget what the acronym is, but so I don't know much about that program. It sounds pretty cool. I'm already a huge fan of our police department. I think they do a great job. They had coffee with a cop on Tuesday, I think, at the Casper College. Free coffee and donuts. Go up there, talk to a cop. They had the National Night Out a few weeks ago. They make themselves available. As far so yeah, I guess I didn't see the particulars of the suggestions that came out of the vigil. I was there. I was there at the youth one, the Casper Youth for Change on the Wednesday, and I was also there the Friday because I think it's really cool that members of our community get together and you know, speak to things that they're passionate about. I think I spoke at Washington Park about, you know, I don't know what opportunities there are in our police department, but I think we do ask a lot of police officers, and I think police departments around the country are doing some really cool, innovative things. Like I said, the Angel program, where people that are misusing roads can turn in illicit paraphernalia and stuff like that. I'll respect the red card, all right? 60 seconds was tough, but I won't fight you on it.
My question is, after that question, are we going to time the questioners? Basically, as Mr. Gamroff mentioned, we just approved going through the accreditation process through the national, and I don't remember the acronym as well, but it's basically an accreditation system nationwide by a national organization that evaluates police departments. And this goes along then with, are you doing things right, or are you doing things inappropriately, and the spread of the right answers. I am very much behind the police department. We have increased our presence in the schools with 10 school resource officers. They are very well liked and very well accepted within the schools. They get a lot of comments, a lot of interaction with our younger people, which we think is great. It appears that potentially by the end of the year, we will finally have a full complement of sworn police officers. We have never been there in the 8 years that I've been dealing with council. So, thank you.
I think that our Casper Police Department does a fantastic job of outreach with the city of Casper. As a young man here in Casper, I had my own business, and I got to know just about every police officer on the force, and starting to see our police officers be more like they were back when I was a kid. It's great to see them interacting with the city. I don't think that we need to defund our police. I think the accreditation is a great idea to make sure that they're doing their job properly. They need to do their job properly, and they need the proper training to do so. And I know for the past 3 years, our police officers' salaries have been frozen at the spot that they're in, so we have 3-year people that are still getting rookie pay. So I think that we need to look at our nonprofit organizations again to help the police department with some of the areas that they shouldn't be dealing with, like mental health issues and things like that they don't have the training to take care of. And like I said, Wyomingites help Wyomingites, so we need to do that.
Is it on? Okay. I think we got a great police department. Absolutely. In fact, if my bid for city council doesn't work out, I will probably end up joining the police department, if that tells you anything. I thought that Kyle had a really good response to this in the last forum at the part in that if we're looking at things like budget cuts, you know, maybe we need to look at all of the things that we are requiring of our police officers to do and maybe make cuts in those regards. But as far as getting rid of our police department, we have a much different paradigm in Casper, Wyoming than they have in these big cities. What is going on in Casper is like nothing that's happening in New York City or Chicago or Cincinnati. And I like what Amber had to say in the last forum, in that it's kind of a loaded question in that anybody on this council should be able to say, no, we're not going to defund our police department.
The police are the face of the justice system, so they take on a lot of the pressure. I think behind the scenes, okay, I'm going to talk to you as somebody that has been a victim of crime. A police officer shows up, they take the report, that's it. That's it. I've had people confess to committing crimes against me, and when I tried to follow up with that, I was told not to press charges. The police do a wonderful job, but I think they need to be supported by detectives, need to follow up on things. That's been a huge problem for me. And I think the DA needs to support the whole system. The police take the brunt of everything because they're the face. They're the ones that show up after the crime has been committed. But they take the report and then the ball gets dropped, and then they're the ones that have to deal with it again, arresting the same people over and over. Our jails and prisons having a revolving door. That's got to be frustrating. So I think that maybe looking past the police department to what happens after that should be addressed.
I think of the police department as just one part of a more holistic view on community safety. I think that we can't rely on them entirely to ensure that we have a safe community. And I think if we do, that is the most expensive and intrusive way to ensure community safety. I think whatever steps we can take to ensure safety as citizens ourselves, whether that's programs, nonprofits, etc., additional funding for mental health, drug abuse, those types of things can result in less police calls, which results in less expense for the city to police its citizens. In addition to that, a healthier overall community. We don't want a community that's only good because the police are there to arrest you if it's not, right? We want our citizens to be truly supported in a way that means we don't ever need the police or only in very extreme circumstances. So I think we need to look at it holistically, and I think that we can't have any sacred cows when we're talking about revenue. So it needs to be a fine-tooth comb to make sure it's efficient, just like everything else.
We have great police. They maintain very sharp uniforms. They're great guys. We all know them by name. We all get angry when someone hurts one of them. I have an anecdote about the Casper police that I tell my friends that don't live in Casper, and they're always bright-eyed. Once I was pulled over, and the police officer's like, "You have a concealed weapon?" I was like, "I have a concealed weapons permit." He's like, "Do you have a firearm today?" I was like, "No, sir." He's like, "Well, why not?" And so I tell them, like, the police in Casper, get frustrated when I don't carry my weapon. But there are cities defunding their police departments, and they're going to rue the day, and we don't have those issues here.
Anything involving the police to be better educated, to do their job better, I will always support. I love dealing with and seeing our resource officers in the school. They protect students. They go through all the different trainings for that, and then the different breakdown of each police officer. You have the street, you have the drug unit, you have all these other units that they specialize, but then on top of that, they also gain other specializations. So if they get into a situation like one might be a certified sniper, that's just a patrol. Nobody knows that. It is so cool to see the diversity in our police department, and so to defund them, no way. To continue education, definitely, we can always continue to learn.
I'm in a unique position to where I actually have to call the police often. Last week, I think it was about 5 different times. I rely heavily on the police, and defunding them, I think that we would be in a very sad state. Unless you are in certain situations, you have no idea what's really out there. And we have a phenomenal police force. I think that they're very respectful. I think they're very kind. I had a situation last week to where I did need the police. They came and said, well, we have a different specialty group that can deal with this situation. So they switched off, handed it off to these other gentlemen, and away they went. And I think that the way that they present themselves to our youth and to the community, we need that. They're not abrasive, they're not upfront, they're in the community, they're with our youth, and that's what we need. I think it would be a sad world if we defunded our police.
Okay, I think my mic is dead.
I'm liking this question so far.
I may just have to yell it at you. This is the last question other than follow-up, so just be cognizant of that. This question is for Mr. Cathy. Casper has 3 wards with 3 council members elected from each ward. When you vote for or against projects or development, how will you balance what you hear from those who live in your ward with the needs of the community as a whole?
You have to look at both because this is a small community, but you do have to take into account your own constituents as well. So it does become a balance between the two, and when it comes down to it, it's actually the greater good. And that's, I think, one thing that a lot of the population of the United States has forgot about. They are so much me, I, my, that they have forgot about we, us, and them, and that's where we need to come together. And there may be certain things that, yes, we definitely don't like on the east side, so it would be my responsibility to vote against it. But by the same token, if it's a good plan for the bigger city, then maybe we need to suck it up and, well, as you would say here, cowboy up and continue on. So it is a fine line, and you have to go that route.
That's a great question. Absolutely, we need to listen to everybody in the city, but we do have the responsibility of taking care of the people in our ward first. I'm sure Steve can tell you about all the tons of emails that he got during the discussion about feral cats. I think he got emails from all over the world yelling at him. So communication is the key with any of the citizens. We need to be able to listen to the citizens and be able to make the decision for the greater good and not just for one section of the community.
I'd say representation is kind of a double-edged sword, in that as a community, you want to vote for a candidate that represents your ideology, and at the same time, as a candidate, you want to represent your constituents' ideology. That being said, we all have biases, but to answer the question specifically, I would probably choose to represent my ward over the city, even though, yes, of course, I'm going to represent Casper as much as I can. I love all of Casper. I just happen to live in a ward.
Same. That's the advantage of having people from different wards and having, representation from each ward. You listen to your ward, you take those thoughts and feelings to the city council, you discuss it, you come up with the best plan.
I don't have much to add. I think I would take the approach of trying to walk the balance and trying to make the best decision at each turn that I can. As the folks down there said, I don't think you can just do one or the other.
I previewed this question in the packet, and I grew up in Denver. I found it almost kind of silly. I don't want to bring down the question, but I live in Ward 2. My office is in Ward 1, and of course I shop in Ward 2 or across the city. So I mean, I don't think that we can do something that benefits part of Casper that's detrimental another part of Casper. My neighbors work at the hospital, although we're in Ward 2. Casper's not so big that you're doing anything that's going to be super beneficial to one group that isolates another, I don't think.
So when I ran, I said I would represent my ward, and that's what I have done, whether I look bad or my ideas, or not my ideas, my constituents' ideas were thrown out of council. I still brought up, the way I look at it is I represent Ward 2. I serve all of Casper from Ward 3 to Ward 1 and 2. And I respect the city employees that say, hey, this is what we want to do. It is a balance between it all. And if I think it's going to help the growth of Casper, I will go with the city. But if the majority of my ward or the majority of the city is saying, no, I'm going to go with them. And that's how I vote.
Casper is ultimately a very small town. I do business throughout the entire Natrona County and into Commerce County. So I do represent my ward, but ultimately I'm going to be responsible, and any decision that the city council is going to make is going to come across to any member of the city council, regardless what ward you're in. So the feral cats, everybody's going to get hammered on feral cats. So it doesn't matter which ward you're in. So although that I am representing Ward 2, I will be representing the entire city of Casper.
I feel bad not using all my time, but I'd have to just be repeating what most everyone has said. I don't have anything that's really novel or unique. Obviously, if I were elected in Ward 2, the constituents that put me in office, their opinions would weigh more heavily. But as everyone has said, you're not going to be able to do something that's going to be beneficial for Ward 3 and not for Ward 1, 2 and not for 3. I would actually even love to see increased communication between the bodies that are leading Casper, Mills, Bar None, Evansville. Growing up in Casper, I always viewed that entire area as Casper, even though technically they're different cities. I think there's a lot more we could be doing to coordinate with each other and partner with each other and just have kind of a more cohesive strategy going forward. Because again, growing up, it always felt like part of one big town and not just Casper with some of these sort of other groups outside of it.
All right, thank you. Trying to be loud enough for you to hear, Mr. McIntosh. If there's any issues that you would like to prioritize or any final comments, now is your final minute. Thank you.
I don't know if I'll use my minute. I think we've had a great discussion. I think looking at the other candidates and what's going on in the city of Casper, I think we're all very aware of what's going to come fiscally, what's going to come to our city, and the things that we're going to need to look at over the next couple of years as we recover from COVID, as the state recovers. I think it's important that we focus on getting some diversification of our economy so that we can start getting the tax dollars back in again. Tourism is one area that we have to make sure that we focus on. Tourism is so important to Wyoming. Most people don't realize how much money is created by tourism. So we need to, hopefully we'll be able to work together as a great council and get a lot of things accomplished so that we'll be able to recover from what's coming.
Okay, just to piggyback on my opening, what we've seen this year, we've seen a lot of, this is the craziest year I've ever experienced since I've been alive. And I've seen the science on what's going on go back and forth and completely contradict itself. And I think that what's important that we realize is that Casper is not New York City or Turkey. And instead of having global ordinances that control how the whole world operates, next time a big crisis happens, maybe we should take a step back and realize what's going on in our own community before we try and destroy our economy for something that could have been dealt with a little bit differently than how we did it. So hindsight's 2020. I'm just hoping that we can move forward learning from all the valuable lessons that hopefully we learned this year.
I think you've got a really great